Imagine standing in your driveway, staring at a $30,000 piece of sculpture that won't move. The engine is silent, the transmission is shredded, and the manufacturer just told you that the repair costs more than the car is worth. You didn't buy a lemon from a shady roadside lot. You bought a brand new car from a global powerhouse. You did your research. You saw the glowing reviews. You trusted the badge. But within months, that new car smell was replaced by the scent of burning oil and the bitter taste of financial ruin. These aren't just cars with common issues. These are automotive betrayals, machines designed with flaws so fundamental they didn't just break, they collapsed, taking their owners' savings and sanity with them. We aren't talking about a squeaky door handle or a dim headlight. We are talking about total mechanical suicide. And the worst part, for most of these owners, the disaster was engineered into the car before it ever left the factory. On paper, every car on this list was a winner. Take the 2013 Nissan Altima. In 2013, this was the Dut car. Looked sleek, it promised 38 miles per gallon on the highway, and it featured zero gravity, seats inspired by NASA. It was the sensible, stylish alternative to the boring Toyota Camry. Buyers flocked to dealerships believing they were getting a tech-forward, fuel-efficient sanctuary. Then there was the Ford Focus. From 2012 to 2016, Ford promised us a revolution. They called it the Power Shift transmission. It was marketed as the best of both worlds, the fuel economy of a manual with the ease of an automatic. It was supposed to be sporty, crisp, and futuristic. For the high rollers, there was the BMW 7 Series with the N63 V8. This wasn't just a car, it was a throne. It was the pinnacle of German engineering, twin, turbocharged beast that could whisk you to 60 miles per hour in total silence. It was a status symbol that screamed, "I've made it." Down the street, the Jeep Grand Cherokee was winning SUV of the Year awards left and right. It was rugged, it was luxurious, and it was the ultimate American family hauler. And for the budget-conscious, the Chevrolet Cruze offered a turbocharged, big car feel in a compact package, promising European handling and incredible gas mileage. We trusted these cars because we were told they were the future. We were told the bugs had been worked out. We believed the marketing gloss. But this is where the story takes a dark turn. The nightmares never start with an explosion. They start with a whisper. For Ford Focus owners, it started at the stoplight. A slight shudder when you pulled away. A tiny hesitation. You'd take it to the dealer, and they'd tell you, "Oh, that's just how it's designed to feel. It's a dry clutch system." But then the shudder became a violent shake. The car started searching for gears like a confused student on their first day of driving school. Nissan Altima owners noticed a drun, rhythmic, whining sound that increased with speed. Then came the rubber band effect. Press the gas, the engine would rev to the moon. The car wouldn't actually accelerate. It felt like the transmission was made of wet cardboard. In the BMW 7 Series, the warning signs were more expensive. You'd pull into your garage and smell something sweet, burning coolant. Or you'd notice the oil level light coming on every 500 miles. On a $90,000 car, you assume it's a sensor error. It wasn't. Jeep owners started seeing Christmas trees. Not the festive kind, the kind where every single warning light on the dashboard illuminates at once for no reason. The gear shifter, that fancy electronic nub, tell you the car was in park when it was actually in reverse. And the Chevrolet Cruze. It started with a puff of smoke, a little drip of coolant here, a tiny oil leak there. Nothing that seemed terminal, but the frequency was alarming. These were the tremors before the earthquake. And while owners were being told, everything is normal, the internal components were preparing to disintegrate. Let's get under the hood, because this is where the nightmare earns its name. The Ford Focus 2012-2016 utilized the DPS6 power shift transmission. Here's the reality. It was a manual transmission controlled by a computer, using dry clutches. The problem, the input shaft seals would leak oil onto the dry clutches. Imagine trying to grip a spinning plate with hands covered in grease. The clutches would slip, the computer would panic, and the car would lurch into traffic or lose power entirely on the highway. It wasn't a quirk. It was a fundamental inability of the hardware to survive basic driving. The Nissan Altima 2013-2018 relied on J2O-sourced CVT's continuously variable transmission technology. Instead of gears, it uses a steel belt and pulleys. In these Altimas, the cooling system was insufficient. The transmission would overheat, causing the belt to slip and eventually snap or shred the internal pulleys. When a CVT fails, you don't fix, you replace the entire unit. It's a $5,000 heart transplant for a car that might only be worth $8,000. Then we have the BMW N63 V8. BMW engineers decided to place the turbochargers in the V of the engine, the hot V design. It's great for performance, but it creates a literal furnace under the hood. The heat is so intense it cooks every rubber seal, plastic hose, and gasket in the engine bay. The batteries would die, because the cooling fans had to run for 20 minutes after the car was turned off just to prevent the engine from melting itself. It was an engine designed for a racetrack but sold to people who sit in traffic. The Jeep Grand Cherokee 2014-2019 suffered from a total integrated power module, a TIPM failure. This is the brain of the car. When it fails, the car develops a mind of its own. It might stall at 70 mph. Fuel pump might stay on until the battery dies. The airbags might not deploy. It was an electronic poltergeist that turned a family SUV into a rolling hazard. Finally, the Chevrolet Cruze 1.4L Turbo. This engine was a masterclass in plastikitis, the water pump, the thermostat housing, the intake manifold, all made of plastic that couldn't handle the heat cycles of a turbocharged engine. They would crack, leak, and cause the engine to overheat, often warping the head before the driver even saw the temp gauge spike. And if these failures happen once, they almost always come back. This is where the emotional toll hits. Imagine you're a single parent who bought a Chevy Cruze because it was affordable and safe. Suddenly, you're hit with a $2,000 repair bill for a turbocharger and a water pump. You pay it. 6 months later, the PCV valve, which is built into the valve cover, fails, sucking oil into the engine and causing another $1,500 in damage. You're trapped in a cycle of debt for a car that is actively losing value. Ford Focus owners had it worse. Many owners went back to the dealership 5, 6, 7 times for clutch replacements. They would get the car back, it would drive fine for 5,000 miles, and then the shuttering would return. Car became sellable. No one wants to buy a used Focus because the whole world knows the transmission is a ticking bomb. Owners were stuck with negative equity, owing $10,000 on a car that was worth $3,000. The BMW 7 Series owners, they saw the most dramatic losses. A 750i that cost $95,000 new could be found on used car lots 5 years later for $15,000. Why? Because the customer care package wasn't enough to fix the inherent heat issues. One out of warranty repair on an N63 engine can easily top $10,000. It is a car that punishes you for owning it. This is the ownership nightmare. It's the stress of wondering if the car will start this morning. It's the fear of merging onto the highway and having the transmission slip. It's the hours spent in dealership waiting rooms drinking stale coffee while a service advisor explains why the extended warranty doesn't cover the specific bolt that caused your engine to explode. How did the brands respond? This is where the trust vs betrayal element really stings. Ford knew. Internal documents released during lawsuits proved that Ford engineers flagged the PowerShift transmission as not ready and unfixable before the car even went on sale. Yet, they pushed it out anyway. They issued technical service bulletins instead of recalls for years, effectively gaslighting owners into thinking it was their driving style causing the issues. Nissan faced class action lawsuits that eventually forced them to extend the transmission warranties to 10 years or 120,000 miles. But for many that was too little, too late. The damage to the Altima's reputation was done. BMW's customer care package for the N63 was one of the most extensive non-recalls in history. They replaced injectors, mass airflow sensors, battery cables, and more, all for free, but refused to admit the engine was fundamentally flawed. They treated the symptoms, but never cured the disease. Jeep and Chrysler faced immense pressure from the NHTSA over their electronic shifters, especially after the tragic death of actor Anton Yelchin, who was pinned by his own Grand Cherokee, because the shifter was so poorly designed he thought it was in park. Only after a high-profile death did the controversy turn into a mandatory fix. So, who should buy these cars? The answer for 99% of you is no. ONE. If you are looking at a 2012-2016 Ford Focus or Fiesta with an automatic transmission, walk away. Run away. The only version of this car worth owning is the manual transmission. If you are looking at a 2013-2018 Nissan Altima, unless the transmission has been replaced in the last 20,000 miles, and you have a lifetime warranty on the new one, it is a gamble you will lose. The BMW 7 Series N63 is only for the person who has a $20,000 emergency fund, specifically for the car and a secondary vehicle to drive while the BMW is in the shop for 6 weeks. The Chevrolet Cruze is a mechanic special. If you love spending your weekends replacing plastic cooling components and tracking down vacuum leaks, go for it. If you need to get to work on Monday morning, buy a Civic. The disaster of these cars teaches us one vital lesson: complexity is the enemy of reliability. When manufacturers chase tiny gains in fuel economy, like Nissan's CVT or Ford's PowerShift, or extreme performance, like BMW's Hot Vive, the person who pays the price is the second or third owner. These cars were designed to lease, to last 3 years and 36,000 miles. After that, they become the owner's problem. We live in an era where cars are more advanced than ever, but that advancement comes with a shelf life. The ownership nightmare happens when we treat a disposable machine like a long-term investment. Now, I want to hear from the survivors. Have you ever owned one of these 5 disaster cars? Did you have a Ford Focus that actually made it to 200,000 miles, or did yours die at the first stoplight? More importantly, what car do you think is the ultimate ownership nightmare? I'll be hearting the most insane stories and replying to the ones that sound truly unbelievable. Let's warn the rest of the community before someone else makes a $20,000 mistake. If you enjoyed this investigative look into automotive failures, hit that subscribe button. We're going deep into the cars that the manufacturers want you to forget ever existed.